Friends, this is a service for Phyllis Goldberg. I'm Rabbi Mark Levin. As it happens, I'm the founding rabbi of the congregation, but I'm here as a friend of Phyllis's, as you all are as well. There's no doubt about the fact that there's no one that would choose to be here today if circumstances were different. But we face the loss of a dear friend, colleague, companion along the way. Family would love for you to stick around afterwards for a little bit if you choose to do so, and maybe schmooze, talk a little bit, tell stories about Phyllis, the impact that she had on your life, things that you remember, things you want to share. If there are things you don't get to say, perhaps you can send them in an email to Melissa or to Dan. You can even send them to me and I'll forward them if you don't have their email address. No one knows the completeness of another human being's life. We're not here because we know the whole story. We're here because there's a piece of the story that touched us. And we know that this is our opportunity to be able to pay our respects, so to speak, to say goodbye, but much more than that, to acknowledge how deeply our lives were touched. All of us perhaps in a different way, but our lives were touched by a deeply caring human being. Okay. I hope you all have an announcement sheet. In a moment, we'll get to the 23rd Psalm, which is traditional. But I'm going to begin with Psalm 15. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and, come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. 23rd Psalm in both Judaism and Christianity is probably the psalm most used in moments of grief. If you took the announcement sheet, you have a translation of it, and if you join with me, that would be lovely. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy hand, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These words from a Jewish sage. In our tradition, he's known as Ben Sirach. In Christian tradition, he's known as Ecclesiasticus. Do not fear death. We are destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and with all who ever will be. Bewail the dead. Do not hide your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember, continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory rest, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, eternal rest better than constant sickness. Seek not to understand what is too difficult for you. Search not for what is hidden from you. Be not overoccupied with what is beyond you, for you have been shown more than you can understand. As a drop of water in the sea is a grain of sand on the shore, are woman's few days when measured in eternity. The good things in life last for limited days, but a good name endures forever. Phyllis would get up on Friday mornings and attend Erev Shabbat services. Now, you would say, those of you who know her tradition, how does one get up in the morning and go to Shabbat services? Well, Phyllis did it online. She held Steve Bernstein in very high esteem, as do many of us. And Rabbi Steve Bernstein, sent these comments. According to the Torah in the book of Genesis, every person is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, each with a spark of divine holiness shining brightly within. According to the Talmudic sage Rabbi Abaya, there are no fewer than 36 special people, the Lamed Vavniks, in the world to receive God's holiness and to reflect that holiness back on the world. Rabbi Rami Shapiro writes, without their acts of kindness, life on this planet will implode under the weight of human selfishness, anger, ignorance, and greed. Everyone who had the honor to know Phyllis understands that she was among the 36 Lamed Vavniks, a devoted friend, mother, grandmother. Phyllis's love was deep. She valued community and was devoted to Judaism. Always ready to share her talents, her time, and her warmth, Phyllis epitomized our goal of creating a supportive, caring community. Number one, volunteer, generous, kind. She loved making people feel good, always eager to hear about what was going on in the lives of those she loved, wanting to know how you were, even when dealing with her own health problems. She wanted to hear what was going on with friends and family. She cared. I believe Phyllis's spirit, her soul, will live on in our memories. As long as we think of her, as long as we remember her, as long as we continue to give honor to her by caring about others, sharing our love, creating a supportive and caring community, doing the good deeds that she did, Phyllis remains an eternal part of us which we pass on for future generations. Phyllis lives on in the hearts of all of us, blessed to have known and loved her. Her memory is a tremendous blessing. From Psalm 90. God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, return, O you mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted. Behold the upright. They shall have peace, God. You redeem the soul of your servants. None who trust in you shall be desolate. I want to call on Phyllis's daughter, Melissa, for comments about her mom. Just stand right here. You'll be fine.
I first want to thank everybody. I'm going to try to get through this. Everybody knew my mom in a different way, but like Rabbi said, she touched us all in a different way. My mom taught me to be the best I could be. I'm sorry. She taught us all to be the best we could. And I hope that I can pass that to Parker when he grows up. But more so, I want to thank everybody for being a part. As I said on Facebook, it takes a village. My mom had the best village around her, so thank you.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, which, if you're old enough, was sung by the birds. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. There were various aspects, parts of Phyllis's life in which she touched people. Bruce Harvey, her colleague from Johnson County Community College, is here to speak about the impact that she had in that wonderful institution where she spent a good bit of her professional life.
Yes, so I'm Bruce, and as he said, I did work with Phyllis at Johnson County Community College, and we have some folks here from JCCC, both retirees and current workers, employees. I met Phyllis when I started at the college, and she was already there in the Career Center working, and then later she transitioned to the Counseling Center, and we became colleagues, really good friends and colleagues. I don't remember the exact first meeting, but Phyllis was one of those people where, you know, when I met her, I just had that vibe. You get that vibe with people where you're probably going to be good friends for a long time, and so we were. So it turns out if you plop a curly-haired, bright-eyed, caring, and empathic New York extrovert in a counseling role, it's the perfect fit. And so it was for Phyllis. She was always for the underdog, the underrepresented, those that had difficult life situations, trying to help them navigate choices and achieve success no matter how small. She impacted countless students. I actually heard someone say that out front today. Faculty and staff. Phyllis was pro-diversity and all about the unique contributions of everyone before it became trendy. One of her significant influences on campus was the initiation and facilitation of a staff support group for the sandwich generation, helping employees feel supported as they assisted elderly parents. She was definitely one of the college's gems. Personally, I'd like to say a few character tidbits from my perspective. I need to first imagine Phyllis and I are at Starbucks, of course, where for the 100th time, she's offered to treat me, but won't let me pay for her latte. We grab a table and she's looking across at me smiling. So Phyllis, you were unapologetically and warmly, well, boisterous. In a charming Carol Burnett, Bette Midler sort of way. In the counseling center, we named all of our office hallways after certain neighborhoods like the Burbs or Main Street, but in yours, after you were calling across the hall so much to neighbors, we called it the Bronx. Your life musings and observations and jokes brought positivity and light. If someone didn't laugh at least once when talking with you, they were probably from another planet. Now, with some folks, you might wonder where they stood, but one of your attributes was your definitive thoughts. We knew what you thought, where you stood, and what you wanted. You were the caring social worker always. You constantly asked, "How are you?" And when we gave a quick reply, you followed up, full gaze, "No, really, how are you?" You wanted to know that we were okay and others were okay. Your giving sensor was always there to offer help, whether it was time, food, dollars. A lot of times in visiting Phyllis, when I would leave, she would offer whatever was on the counter, whatever was in her fridge or freezer that she had bought extra of, and I would say, "No, I'm okay, I'm okay." We had a slumber party one night many years ago. I call it a slumber party, where there was a treacherous snowstorm, and she insisted that I stay with her overnight instead of commuting home to KCMO from the college. And I really appreciated that. It was an angelic blessing that she gave me. Phyllis, you loved a great party and festivity. I can hear you saying about an event or something coming up, "Ooh." I don't think I've seen anyone celebrate a 70th birthday like you did. You were so excited. I don't even know if you registered 69 because you started celebrating a year in advance. You were compassionate and empathic for others and their life journeys. You were a confidant. I experienced this firsthand years ago. You were among the initial small friend circle I shared with about finding this wonderful guy that eventually became my husband. I'll always cherish the support and love you gave us. Everybody knew of your strong faith, your commitment to serving your synagogue and community, and living out your faith. In closing, as I think about the last few years and how you encountered your diagnoses and their toll on your body, I'm reminded of a quote by noted sociologist Brené Brown. She writes about facing challenging times and being vulnerable. She says, "Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage." Phyllis, you showed up. You were seen. You were brilliantly vulnerable and triumphantly courageous. So our coffee time is done. We stand just inches from the table and embrace. I feel one of those super warm hugs back that you always give, the kind where your fingers grip in a little extra. I and we love you in all that you are and what you will forever be in that place in our hearts.
In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too live. They are a part of us as we remember them. We walk life's path, losing companions who step aside, away. Life is a mystery, death an impenetrable darkness. We embrace those companions, pulling them back through memory's blessing, cherishing silently their lessons. We clutch both hands above the hearts they touched. The best reach out to invisibly out of the darkness whisper our paths, and hope's light, however bright or dim, guides our lonely way. I don't really know how to do this. There's really no way to capture Phyllis's life adequately, who she was, how she thought about life, her struggles, her triumphs. I don't know that Phyllis was unique, but I do know, and I have long known, I do not feel adequate to this task. It struck me after Phyllis passed on Monday that Phyllis's cancer became for me a metaphor for her life. I think it was 17 years ago Phyllis was told she had this cancer. Her oncologist told her, she told me at the time, that this cancer doesn't kill people and she shouldn't worry. It was very slow growing, she'd be fine. And she was fine until she wasn't anymore. She rarely mentioned the cancer, at least to me, until the flare-up that eventually took her life. It was like a problem solved, as so many other issues in her life were overcome by sheer guts and fortitude. So the reason I say the cancer was a metaphor for her life is that Phyllis struggled with many challenges foisted upon her. Phyllis, with all of her self-doubt, with all of her independence, was a courageous warrior battling for life against tremendous odds. A lone soldier standing in front of a mountain facing an avalanche she was going to have to conquer on her own. Few advantages, really nothing to fall back on, like inherited savings or a family to help her out. But Phyllis battled her way forward, fearful to be sure, but knowing success or failure was on her. Even these last days, fearful of dying, Phyllis insisted she had beaten the cancer, was going to regain her strength and return home to the atriums. Phyllis developed the skill of finding the path forward, putting fears out of her way, battling to achieve. But she did all of this out of love of life, a ferocious love of life and of people. She and Peter divorced after 9 years of a failed marriage. She had 2 children, with very little help raising them from Peter's side. Phyllis had an undergraduate degree from Hunter College in New York and had moved to Kansas City. She made low wages working for the Red Cross, taking care of 2 young children, and a difficult relationship with her former husband, and needing more money just to get along. So Phyllis, rationally of course, decided to go and get a master's degree to add to all of that from Webster University in Kansas City, which she finally received in 1986. The degree was a master's in gerontology, but she talked her way into a job as a career counselor at Johnson County Community College. And that's where Phyllis relished working until retirement. Phyllis had a mother here, Betty Ashkenazi, who was often a comfort and meant so much to Phyllis. A sister, Gita's family in Denver, whom she did not see frequently. That relationship was originally difficult for reasons of family history, and Phyllis put a lot of time into repairing and building it to her and their satisfaction. It meant so much to Phyllis. When Gita developed kidney disease, Phyllis worried deeply about her. They had time to visit. Phyllis built up an emotional bond with her niece, Miri, and that was deeply significant to Phyllis. But then Miri developed breast cancer, suffered tremendously over a long period, and both of them eventually passed. I was not certain if Phyllis could surmount the loss, but she did. It pained her so much. She worried deeply about people, all these losses in her small family, and Phyllis soldiered onward. Phyllis worried most about her kids, Melissa and Dan, really wrung her hands fretting over their problems. Melissa's children, Hannah and Noah, also burrowed places in Phyllis's heart. And their many issues occupied Phyllis over the years. Family and friends meant so very much in Phyllis's life. She took responsibility for outcomes not of her own doing, wanting to improve everyone's life. It was just the way that Phyllis loved. But Phyllis, despite these challenges, hung in there. These last couple of years, Phyllis's relationship with Melissa's husband, Chad, with Phyllis's great-grandchild, Parker, brought her enormous joy and satisfaction. She never anticipated these last couple of years of mother-daughter relationship and love with Melissa. And Dan has provided endless nachas, the Yiddish word for soul satisfaction. She just couldn't get enough of Parker, no matter how often she saw him. And Miri's passing, the blossoming of her relationship with Miri's husband, Dan, totally unexpected, with Dan's boys, brought Phyllis a deep love that she didn't imagine possible. Those phone calls to Dan meant so much to her, and I suspect she would have spoken to Dan every single day if he just said okay. You get the picture? Phyllis invested in life. Without stint, never given up. In loving relationships that blossomed over years, and Phyllis was great at worrying as well as at loving. No amount of loving completely satisfied Phyllis. The truth is that she never achieved having the partner to share her life, the partner that she would have liked. That was a big hole in her heart. But she filled it with things that she loved. Her friendships, which I'll mention more about later. Robin, Marcia, Jeannie. These were places that Phyllis went for soul satisfaction. Up until COVID a few years ago, Phyllis met weekly during the school year with an elementary school student for lunch and reading. Phyllis loved it. It was like she adopted, this 6-year-old child. She became very invested in that student, devoted, Once again, Phyllis could show love, improve a young person's life. Phyllis would not miss a session and really, truly enjoy the relationship. God forbid something came up and she couldn't make that lunch. You would have thought that she was being paid $1,000 a session. But with COVID, all such matchups came to an end. And Phyllis never saw the student again and somehow got past it. Another loving relationship lost. In the summer of 2003, Phyllis seized the opportunity through the Johnson County Community College to represent the school and teach and counsel at Udmurt State University, 900 miles east of Moscow, Russia. Phyllis stayed with the family and, not surprisingly, became very close to their daughter, Stacy, who grew up, got married, left Russia for Germany, where she lives today. Phyllis has maintained that close relationship for the last 20 years. And she wrote in our temple congregational bulletin to Kia, "I will have memories to last a lifetime." I don't know whether it was a promise or a prediction, but it came true. Indeed, Phyllis planned and developed strategies to create lifetime memories, including 3 trips to Israel and her travels to the former Soviet Union, of which she was so proud and felt so fortunate and mentioned so many times. She continued to discuss through this past week. She considered herself to be so blessed by these opportunities. How could they possibly come to her? Phyllis was among the families that in 1988 founded this congregation where you sit, whose motto from the beginning was, "Dare to Dream." From 2003 to 2005, she served as Beth Tower's 9th president. Our primary means of communication with the congregation was then our bulletin called Tekiah. Exactly 20 years ago, Phyllis wrote this. "This is a time when we consider our actions and our interactions over the past year. We are reminded that our behavior does make a difference, and that we are capable of change. Are there relationships that have been broken in our Beth Torah community? Have we treated our Beth Torah staff with honor and respect? Have we conducted our committees, board and staff meetings, even our disputes for the sake of heaven? Have we thanked our teachers and volunteers for the difference they make in our lives? Have we really given our financial resources and our time to the best of our ability? Where do we want to concentrate our energies in the year to come? How do we need to change as individuals, spiritually, educationally, interpersonally, and in our relationship to the state of Israel to accomplish our goals?" Phyllis saw the role of Beth Torah as creating lifetime Jewish memories for its members. She wrote in December 2004, "Beth Torah is a part of me. Beth Torah is the family I created for myself. And community is what is important to me. My goal, I realized, is to make Beth Torah this poem from our prayer book. May the door of the synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May its walls be too high to admit complacency and selfishness and harshness. May the synagogue be for all who enter the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life." You know, she didn't just write, she believed it. It's the way she lived, or at least tried to live. From 1988 until just a few years ago, Beth Torah provided a spiritual home and enormous friendships that enriched Phyllis's life. She really lived a good bit of her life in these walls. But as much as Beth Torah gave to her, she created an institution in which lifelong memories could be created for members of a community in which she believed deeply. She was active and took part in creating our Sharim committee. That's the committee that structures congregants to be able to reach out to other people's lives and have a touch that is meaningful in difficult circumstances. Sharim might provide rides or meals when there was a loss in a family, but the idea was for people to volunteer to be involved in others' lives, as Phyllis did so constructively for her entire adult life. For many years, Beth Torah had large confirmation classes in the 10th grade of religious school. Bessie Cowley created a very popular program in which Jewishly successful adults would volunteer to help to mentor confirmation students, to help those students learn how they might continue Judaism in their adult lives, as the mentors did. Phyllis was among the mentors. Loved it for years when she participated. Think of the pattern. Phyllis got involved creatively, helpfully, as many lives as possible, because that was also a way to not only benefit others, but create meaning for herself. She truly was a religious person who took religion to heart in so many ways. And this High Holy Day season was her best religious time of the year, because it meant introspection, which she did fervently, and redirection to improve herself and her world. She just wanted to live to Rosh Hashanah. Phyllis pushed for hundreds of people to sign up annually for our mitzvah days, when Beth Torah families went to projects in the community to improve the world. Working at the Restart Shelter in January, delivering meals at Pleasant Green Baptist Church for Thanksgiving and Christmas. These were projects that she helped along both as volunteer and as president of the institution that sponsored them. There's just too much to talk about that Phyllis helped to create. Synagogue 2000 was a synagogue renewal program that we were involved in, and Phyllis was part of the team. She was all excited about bringing storytelling to Beth Torah. That's an opportunity to recreate Bible stories during worship, to act them out in a meaningful way for the congregation, to dramatize the Bible that would be meaningful in people's lives. ECE, the Experiment in Congregational Education, that helped to reconstruct our religious school, brought the congregation to conclusion that they needed a rabbi educator. Another major experience that changed the direction of our congregation and of our community. Jewish journey groups, which Phyllis described as small groups of congregants who want spiritual growth, interweaving their personal stories with sacred stories and texts of Jewish tradition. Phyllis helped to bring Jewish journey groups into Beth Torah during her presidency and to maintain them for our families. Phyllis, in the course of her writing, shared this story. A man had a dream. He was standing in a room surrounded by thousands of oil-soaked candles. Some of the candles burned brightly, others flickering, some were dim. He saw a man who seemed to be in charge and asked about the candles in the place. Each candle represents a life, the man explained. The ones burning brightly are in their prime, and the ones with less oil, dim or flickering, are people who are dying. The man saw a flickering candle with his name on it and panicked. He took oil from a brightly burning candle and poured it into his own, trying to increase the oil for his own candle. The stranger stopped him and said, "That's not the way the candles work. Your candle burns brighter when you give oil to another." Hearing that, the man picked up his candle and poured oil into other candles. When he put it down, his flame started burning more brightly. It's no wonder Phyllis chose to share that story with the congregation. She was all about taking from her oil, pouring it into other people's candles. Phyllis often asked the congregation in articles, but more often she asked herself, what does life mean? She was a poignant combination of setbacks and achievements, goals along with successes. She was never permanently daunted. Even this last week insisted she was not as sick as the doctors claimed, and she would return home and improve her health. Some would call it denial, others, a positive attitude. Phyllis used her columns in Takia to discuss ideas, not just programs. Among the things she wrote about was change. In one column, she remarked that she had been told that Beth Torah was not the congregation that people had originally joined, that things had changed. So often, Phyllis attempted to use her columns to increase involvement, but she handled the issue head on. She acknowledged its truth and that Beth Torah was reevaluating its direction, that we had a new strategic plan. We were working on a process person to keep the congregation on track. I can't help but believe that this approach typifies Phyllis's life. Never quite satisfied with the status quo, always reevaluating, always looking forward, always considering how she might change things for the better, for herself, for her children, for her congregation, for her grandchildren, for Johnson County Community College. All those things she invested in and loved dearly. Phyllis did not relinquish the past easily. A highlight of Phyllis's life was her adult bat mitzvah. With a small class of women at Beth Torah in early 1995, all the elements were there. A class of women that she really liked, studying Judaism together. A ceremony in which Phyllis got to read Torah during a service, an opportunity she was denied as a girl in New York during her childhood. Her good friends, Marcia and Robin and Jeannie, gave Phyllis a hand-painted prayer shawl, her own talit, to wear in worship as she celebrated her community. It all meant so much to her and brought Phyllis tears of joy. In these last weeks of life, with Phyllis fighting to continue going, she retold the stories of memorable events. Her trips to Russia and Israel, her presidency at Beth Torah, her friendships with Robin and Marcia and Marlene and Stacy and Elise, the young lady from Russia, her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchild, Gita, Miri, Dan's family. Family was a central cog in the wheel of life for Phyllis. She did not speak about hardships she had surmounted along the way, the obstacles she had overcome, the courage and sheer guts she displayed in raising and supporting a family while getting a master's degree, improving her life, improving her family. Phyllis Goldberg simply loved life, unabashed, wholehearted, threw herself in, and she fashioned many loves. Perhaps that's the reason speaking about her life is just so very difficult. She was very real. She was herself. Every place she looked, every direction she moved in, Phyllis created loving, caring relationships. It was her nature to worry about the details, about whether things would work out, about what she was missing or didn't get done, but it was all in service to creating meaningful and loving relationships as long as she could get life to last. To Melissa and Chad, to Dan, to Hannah and to Noah, to Robin O'Brien, Marcia Rittmaster, Maxine Benson, Robin Onicle, Lise Block, all of you who helped Phyllis along the way and were such good friends. I know you've lost a soulmate, a dear friend, a woman who's very much part of your lives. Cherish the memories. Phyllis will live on in our community through her works, through her values, through her good deeds. She touched so many lives. Zecher tzedeket livracha. May the memory of this righteous woman live on as a blessing. A voice says, cry out. And I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass. All its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades. When the wind of our God blows upon it, surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God will endure forever. Hatzor tamim pa'alo ki chol deracham mishpat yelim mona ve'ein adil tzadik ve'yashar hu. Hatzor tamim b'chol po'al mi'umar l'matifal. Hashali p'matav v'ma'al me'mit m'chayem u'rishol ve'ya'al. Hatzor tamim b'chol ma'aseh me'umar l'mata'aseh. Tzadik ata Adonai lach mitu lachayot. Asher b'yadcha pikadon kol ruchot chalil l'chazichronenu l'chot. Yunai necha b'rachamim aleinu b'kuchot ki God is sure our immovable rock. All God's work is upright. Who can say, what is it that you do? The eternal governs what is above and what is below, overseeing both the valleys of death and the heights of life. God is sure our immovable rock. Who can say to God, what will you do? You are righteous in your dealings in both death and life, and every soul is in your trust. In the words of Job, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai v'varach. God has given, God has taken away. Praise be God's name. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzalmo b'zam zechelkel etchem b'tuvo v'hemit etchem badin, v'natah b'tochachem chayei olam. Baruch atah Adonai dayan ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in your divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, who causes all of us to die, and who implants immortal life within us. Praised are you, Lord, the righteous judge. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The Spirit returns to God who gave it. Is only the house of the Spirit, which we mourn. The Spirit itself cannot die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed, Phyllis Goldberg. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. No human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it. Still, it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. God, help us to understand grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is a measure of a love that is stronger than death. That we cry in the anguish of our hearts when we be like children who know that their parent is near, who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this Spirit, O God, we commit all that is precious to us into your keeping. Please rise for the words, if you feel able, of El Malay Rachamim. Malay Rachamim, Shochen Bamrumim. Hamse Minuchana Chona Tachat Kanafei Shchina. Im Kedoshim Utahorim Kazoar Harakim Asirim. Et Nishmad Fega Malka Bad Yosef Rivka Shalach Lolamo. Baal Harachamim Yastereh Baset Kanafechel Ulamim Vitzror Bitzror Chaim and Ishmata. Adonai Hu Nachlata B'Tanuch B'Shalom Mishkavav and Omar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Phyllis Merle Ashkenazi Goldberg, Fega Malka Bad Yosef Verivka, who has entered into eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God be her inheritance, and may she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Kaddish is a doxology. It's a praise of God's name. It is the least likely prayer to say at this moment. Least likely because if this is everyone's end, then why do we care? But we say it because it's an affirmation. We say it because, as Phyllis believed, life is meaningful. We say it because it links us to all the generations that have been and all the generations that will be. We say it because Phyllis was motivated to touch many lives, and that's what life is about, and that's why we're here. So in the wake of our loss, we praise God's name in traditional terms and traditional words. If you'd like, please join with me. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei olmaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'alma, v'imru amen. Yehei shalom al rabba min shemai v'chayim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Uyaseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, v'imru amen. May God who makes peace in the heavens make peace among us, the whole house of Israel, and all of humanity. It's traditional to say to the mourners, and I would ask for all the friends to recite after me, to Melissa and Dan and all those who mourn Phyllis's memory. Friends, please, may God console you amidst all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Our service is complete. May go in peace. Thank you all for coming, and I know family would love to have your conversations. There is a little food out there if anybody wants to pick some up.
You need a hug.
Always.
That's beautiful. I know how difficult it was for you. Thank you.
You know, it's what we owe.
No, I think Phyllis would have been happy.
Thank you.
That's what you want.
Hey, Mayor.
Well, that was lovely. A poignant combination of setbacks and achievements. I remember that one. Is that you or is that?
Oh, that's me.